Like we did in the first session, we'll be going through another set of videos in which we will also have panelists in which we will interact based on the videos that we have for us for discussion for today. Permit me to bring up my panelists this afternoon. The first person on my list, her name is Miss Barrister Omolara Akinwale. Barrister Omolara Akinwale is a money management consultant and CEO of MoneyWise. She helps women conserve their earnings so that they can build wealth steadily. She does this through training, short courses, consultancy, and coaching. She believes anyone can be wealthy if they master money management skills and apply it to their daily living. She started on this journey with her own practical experience, and she had impacted quite a number of women with money management principles in the past 5 years with impressive feedbacks. A lawyer and a philanthropist, Omolara is an associate member of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. She's married with children. She loves hanging out with friends and making children smile. She can be reached at laralaraola@yahoo.com. Please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mrs. Barrister Omolara Akinwale to the podium. While she comes up, the next person on my panel this afternoon is Mrs. Lola Oladele Ojo. You have seen her already this morning, but I would like to read her profile once again. Mrs. Lola Oladele Ojo is a financial consultant with over 16 years of experience. She is a member of several professional institutions, among which are Chartered Institute of Loans and Risk Management, Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, Chartered Institute of Administrators and Accountants, USA. She's well versed on financial management, human resources, management, and education, and she loves teaching children. Please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Ms. Lola Oladele Ojo. My third panelist this morning is also a banker. His name is Mr. Dotun Otunla. Mr. Dotun Otunla is a banker with over 13 years experience spanning retail and commercial end of the industry. His 4 years taken him through various departments ranging from tailoring, funds transfer, relationship management, credits until 2008 when he became a branch head. He had his first degree in agri economics and extension at Lautech, MSc in agri econs, University of Ibadan, MBA at Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He is married to Olaide Dotun Otunla, and their union is blessed with 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Otunla to the podium. You're welcome, sirs. Welcome, ma'am, to this session. We'll be looking at a major topic as far as becoming financially free is concerned, and that is the aspect of debt. Debt is a major challenge that we are facing, and as much as we don't have statistics in Nigeria that we can lay hands on, there are a lot of statistics as far as countries like United States, and in the course of our discussion, we'll see 1 or 2 as far as this issue of debt is concerned. Before we go into the video, I want to ask, what is your definition of debt? One, from a banking perspective. Let me leave this question for the 2 bankers for now. What is your definition of debt?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, in a simple layman's language, is you taking funds that you actually don't have to meet certain needs. It could be business needs, it could be personal needs, as the case may be. And usually, for a bank, that is the business we are into. We take money from where there is surplus and give it to where there is scarcity. You understand? So people take on debts, by borrowing money to do certain things as it behooves them.
All right, let me go to Mrs. Akinwale. From a money management consultant's perspective, what is debt?
It is using the money that doesn't belong to you, spending money that you have not, that is not yours, that you have not. How can I put it? Spending money that you have not received, money that you don't have. You have already spent a particular money that you don't have. That is how we see debt.
All right, thank you. I think we can go to hear what Dave has to say on this issue of debt. All right, media.
Oh, you guys are good. Oh, you guys are good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Wow. I tell you what, I go around the world teaching all over the place, teaching people all about this idea of debt. And the idea that if you could get out of debt, you'd have some money. If you didn't have any payments, you'd have some money. And people look at me with two different problems with that. One is they get all sophisticated and academic. They start talking about, well, Dave, there's good debt. There's good debt, and Wall Street has proven that recently. Dave, debt is a tool to be used for your good. And I used to believe that garbage too. I was in college and they used to teach us this stuff about leverage and internal rates of return and net present values. And I'm not against education. I mean, my financial education is part of where I am now. Academia is a good thing. But you can't believe everything you hear to the extent it doesn't line up with this. Because, I got to thinking, the borrower is truly slave to the lender. We're not kidding about that. God's truth says that every single time. And I got to thinking about it, and I'm thinking, who was it taught me that borrowing money was good? This was my finance professor in college who was broke. A broke finance professor is like a shop teacher with missing fingers. You see, if you want to win, you ought to try finding some people that are winning and emulate or mimic what they are doing. If you hire a personal trainer and you walk in the first morning and your personal trainer is 400 pounds, we got a problem. If you've written a book on marriage and you've been married 14 times, bless your heart, I hope this one sticks, but I don't want to read your book. I was with a couple the other day that were 87 years old. Been married 60 some odd years. You want to be married, that's who you ask. You ask him, how you married to her 60-something years, she don't kill you. Men want to know these things. Find a winner and emulate what they're doing. If you study, Forbes magazine has the 400 wealthiest people in North America that it publishes every year. 67% of them, 7 out of 10 of them are first generation rich. They started with nothing, became wealthy. When they surveyed the wealthiest people in North America, not your broke brother-in-law with an opinion, but the 400 wealthiest people in North America, and they asked them what the most important key to becoming wealthy was, 75% of them said getting out of debt and staying out of debt. But broke people always got a plan for a payment, don't they? Because broke people always want a car that they can't afford. They always want a stereo that they can't afford. They always want some clothing or a vacation that they can't afford. And let me tell you how you can tell if you can afford it. You have the money to pay for it. Unless you have the money, that by definition is you can't afford it. Because when you go into debt, then you're hooked to those payments. Now you're a slave. Jesus said it's tough to serve two masters. So what are we going to do about this? How are we going to get out? Well, we want to talk about breaking the bondage of debt and how you really do it in a real practical, hands-on, real-world application. See, the truth is that if you spread a lie or a myth often enough, loud enough, and with enough sophistication, eventually people will begin to believe it. And they will tell other people about the lie. And it's not that they meant to lie, they just believed a lie and they spread it. It happens all the time. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Everybody stand up for a second. Now here's what I want you to do. I need you to close your eyes. I can see all of you and I will mess with you if you don't follow my instructions. I need you to close your eyes, and with your eyes closed, I want you to play my games. I promise not to mess with you so long as you play. If you're wrong, I won't make fun of you. If you don't play, I will totally pick on you. And we'll point the camera right at you. Here's what I want you to do. With your eyes closed, I want you to take your best guess with your eyes closed and point north. No, sir, up does not count. If you're wrong, it's okay, but give us your best guess. This is funny. Open your eyes and look around. Uh-oh. Somebody's wrong. Well, apparently some of you aren't lost because according to my compass, north is this way. Now we have people pointing this way, and a couple are pointing this way. Now we're taping this in Oklahoma, and so if you want to go to Canada, north is going to be this way. You can get to Canada this way, but it's the long way around. You can argue about this, but you'll be wrong. You can start your own denomination, but you'll be wrong. This is north. Now, I didn't know either. I've got a compass. I cheated. But you know what? You and I have got a compass. And it's not cheating to not be lost. Everybody have a seat. See, what has happened with this is debt has been marketed to us so aggressively, so thoroughly, with such sophistication and such manipulation for so long that Americans and people all around the world have begun to believe all deep down within their heart that they will never financially be somebody unless they use debt to do it. Debt is the path to prosperity. If you want you a good car, son, you got to build your credit. You'll never be anybody unless you build your credit. In America, we worship at the altar of the FICO score. Oh, great FICO, our provider. FICO, thank you, FICO. How'd you get that? Oh, Mr. FICO sent it. It was because of my FICO. I work really hard to keep my FICO up. And your FICO is a mathematical algorithm that shows how you interact with debt. When you quit borrowing money, your FICO score will erode. How am I going to live? See, we worship at the altar of debt. We think debt is our provider. Now, I don't want to get all religious or crazy on you, but, it turns out God's your provider. And I know that sounds kind of bizarre sometimes when you say it. It sounds like, some kind of preacher guy or something. But He really is your provider. It really is where it comes from. And sometimes He provides you with two hands and a brain to work. Those who don't work don't eat. I read that. The diligent prosper, not the lazy at home watching TV. That it's in there. I mean, he chose you. I mean, it's not like He's just going to roast the duck and throw it in your back window. You got to go kill it and cook it, But God is your provider. That's how this stuff works. And debt has been marketed to us so thoroughly that we now believe it's our provider, and to imagine living without debt requires a complete paradigm shift, a completely new way of looking at things. Let's play with some new ways of looking at things. If you get a new way of looking at things, you know what's happened? Learning occurred. That's how you get a new way of looking at things. That's why when you read Scripture and then 5 years later you read the same Scripture and you go, whoa, I never thought about it that way. Why? Because you have a new way of looking at things. You had new eyes to see the exact same words and truth. They leap off the page, grab you around the neck, and you go, oh, okay, I got it now. It gives you a different feel, doesn't it? And you could just kind of blow past it other times, and then other times you go, wow. And it's in there. So that's a new way of looking at things. That is learning. And that's what we're doing in here. We're learning today. God's ways of handling money. God's ways of getting out of debt. And so here's one. Let's look at this one. How many of you see the white candlestick or the vase in the middle? Look, it's right there in the middle. Raise your hand when you see it. I'll wait till everyone sees it and raises your hand. It's white. It's in the middle. Raise your hand when you see it. I'll wait. It's there. Okay, good. Now, how many of you see two faces looking at each other? Good. How many of you see two people getting ready to kiss? Sex fiends. Okay, now. Here's another one. Men, I'll warn you about this one. I've been married 27 years, and you better watch your punctuation. A woman without her man is nothing. A woman without her man is nothing. A woman without her man is nothing. It's all in the way you look at it. And you better look at it right if you're smart, boys. That's, you get a new way of looking at things because now you've been taught punctuation matters. Here's another one. You got to look at this one really careful. If you look at it careful, you'll see it. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. My wife Sharon and I, we got out of school. We got married. No, this is not marriage. We had a little bit of student loan debt, a lot of money on our Amoco card because I bought a couch on my Amoco card. I don't think you're supposed to do that, but the guy at the flea market said it was okay. And we started off our lives, and we were eating off a card table, driving a 1902 Pinto, and we were trying to get going, and we needed a television. We needed a television. So I went down to the electronics store, and I got 90 days, same as cash, because I had no cash. And I was a finance major, and so I'm going to get this free money, 0 interest, because I'm so smart. By the way, 80% of 90 days, same as cash, doesn't pay off in 90 days and transfers to high-interest loans at your local finance company, 24 to 38%, with a prepayment penalty just to go ahead and kick you one more time to remind you how dumb you were. Most people don't pay it off in 90 days. And if you don't pay it off in 90 days, by the way, the 90 days isn't free either. They backcharge you through that for the interest. It's how it works. It's a game. It's called fishing. Right? That's the deal. And so we started off our lives that way, and we went and bought a television. Then I went and bought a car I wanted that my wife, I thought, needed. Yeah, some of you guys have bought a car that you wanted that you thought your wife needed. Yeah, you blamed it on her, in other words, right? And then we went to get a house. Get a house, get a house, get a house, get a house. You got to get a house if you don't get a house. Oh, you don't want to be a renter. Renters are evil. Renters' salvation is in jeopardy. You do not want to be a renter, because this is the way our culture talks, isn't it? You'll never be anybody. Get a house, get a house, get a house, get a house. You know what happens when broke people get a house? They get broker. That's why they call them real estate brokers. A house is not a blessing when you're broke. It'll take you apart and take you down. So if you want to get a house, do some stuff about money that the Bible says so you're not broke anymore, and then go get you a house. But I didn't do that. I've been married about 15 minutes. People are in my living room going, you need to get a house. Get a house, get a house, get a house, get a house. And so we went and found a house with nothing down because that's how much we had to put down. They called it creative financing, which if you look it up in the Greek means too broke to buy a house. And so we bought a house about 3 blocks over from where I grew up. Larry Burkett used to say we spend the first 5 to 7 years of our marriage trying to attain the same standard of living as our parents. Only it took them 35 years to get there. I lived in the same neighborhood as Mom and Dad, had a better car than Mom and Dad, and for sure had a better TV and stereo system than Mom and Dad. 52% of the marriages end in divorce in North America today. Of those that divorce, the number one cause is money fights and money problems. Of those that divorce in the first 7 years of marriage, 90% say money caused it. Young marriages are falling apart everywhere. You know why? When you're like this, your leg gets tired. They come in our office, they look like this all the time for financial counseling. Dave, can you get me out? When I went broke and started over, I discovered this was the truth. That the borrower is slave to the lender is the truth. Regardless of how you feel, this is the truth. And so regardless of what somebody... one of the benefits of going broke is I didn't care what anybody thought anymore. You get over worry about what people think. And you just go do whatever. And if they laugh at you, you just go, well, that's good. Just keep laughing. And you just keep going. And so I just kept going. And people made fun of me. Dave, you're a simpleton. You're not very sophisticated. The financial world thinks I'm a wiener in a steakhouse, you know. And my net worth 6 times what any one of theirs is. You know, I mean, isn't it amazing? It's a concept. But we got out of these things, and I want to show you how. How do you get out? Well, the first thing was I discovered, I was reading through Proverbs. If you read Proverbs over and over and over again.
Okay. For the benefit of those that are not used to the American accent, these are some of the highlights of what is said in that first part. If you want to win, whether with money or anything, any area of your life, find a model after people who are winning in such area of your life. 75% of 400 wealthiest people in North America interviewed said getting out of debt and staying out of debt is the secret to wealth. We have believed a lie due to sophisticated marketing about money. My brother said that is the business they are into. So you can see that's why we brought them to come and bring a balance to it this afternoon. All right, it says you can't serve 2 masters. It's either God or you are serving money. It says, let God's word be your compass on money, not your college professor. Getting out of debt requires a complete paradigm shift. The number 1 cause of high rate of marriage divorce is due to money fights. You can change your family tree when you get out of debt. It's the truth from also the compass that says the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Before we go back to the video, when I was growing up, we hear a lot of myths about money, debt, like that. I want to ask my panelists, and probably the audience can share their own. One of the ones I heard when it comes to money, it's in Yoruba, but so I will say it and try to interpret. Wọ́n ní àtowó lówó àtowó ẹni kíkan ṣàmátì ṣe wọ́n ni. Let me, for the sake of those that don't understand Yoruba, your money, somebody else's money, as long as you don't lack one, just get the money. Another one I heard growing up was that, and this, in short, even my senior brother say it a lot, that look, even America, that is the richest country in the world, borrows, they are in debt. So debt is not a big deal. And you know, this issue of myths about money, debt, are the ways a lot of us form our mindset. And that's why he said, when Dave was saying that when a lie has been told to you for a long time, it becomes a truth. So, Mr. Otola, let me start with you. What are your own myths about debt that you've heard, probably while growing up, or that's commonplace for you?
Anyway, what you mentioned earlier is something I'm conversant with, and it's probably one of the things that actually formed her behavioral pattern when it comes to trying to bring things that you can actually have done on your own in the future closer. And that is where most of us find ourselves where we are at the moment. It's an interesting issue when it comes to the issue of debt. I personally have been trying to get out of debt, and I'm working towards it seriously. The truth of the matter is this, you see. Now, from my own experience point of view, all debts are bad. But if I must talk from a banker's point of view, because if you preach this to most people that don't take on debt, they'll tell you probably because you have so much cash flow around you, that is why you are talking like that. But if I must get things done the way I need to get it done, then I go further to tell people that if you must take on debt, let it be a wise debt. How do I mean? If you must take on debt, let it be debt that okay, what you're using it for, the cash flow from it is capable of actually taking care of the debt itself, not that you now start sweating to actually solve or repay that debt. So for me, that belief is what actually got us where we are. I was reading the journal sometimes ago, and it was in the journal. An average American takes on debt because you are taught how to take on debt right from school days. In fact, they were given credit card right from there. But in China, one of the fastest growing economy, one of the most powerful economy, an average Chinese save and save and save and save, and they have so much money stashed up in their savings. And that is why America today is G3 about the foray of the Chinese and their development bank into Africa and to wherever, because they're actually taking over locations from the Britons and the Americas. You understand? If you check out their lifestyle, you find out that an average Chinese have learned to save money, whereas an average American have learned to actually take on debt.
All right, Mr. Lola, I'm going to come back to you. Mr. Akinwale, let me hear your own point of view.
Well, one of the myths I hear every time is that as long as you're going to pay back, as long as you are sure the money is going to come in, it's okay for you to borrow. And I tell people that I coach that if you don't have the money, don't do anything. If you have not made the money, it is until you make the money. Okay, for example now, you have provided service for a client and you are sure that the client is calling you that in the next 2 weeks he's going to pay. Now you have dealt with this client times with that number and the client don't owe, and you are sure and comfortable that it's going to pay. And they call you the following day and tell you that the client died. What do? Will you go and tell the family of the client that you have to pay you in 2 weeks? They might eventually pay you, but it might be over a year. And if you have gone to borrow money, definitely you won't be able to pay because you have banked on the money you have not made. It is the money that is in your hand that you are supposed to budget on. You are supposed to put all your expenses, savings and everything on, not money that you have not made. So that's one of the myths I hear every time, that is it not okay for me to borrow? I am sure I'm going to pay back. Or you are starting up a business, you have a business, a thriving business, and you are sure that every week you make 50,000 naira. And they tell you that, okay, let me quickly collect this 20,000. At least I'm sure that I'm going to. And maybe you are selling bushmeat, and that's the week Ebola came to Nigeria, and everybody ran away from bushmeat. What do? So that's one of the myths I hear every time from time to time.
All right. Mrs. Lola, I will come to you because you made mention of this. This is another myth. You made mention of this in the first session, that people say debt is a tool. Somebody asked that question. I don't know that even Dangote borrows, and you try to correct that. Now, I want you to just in a minute or two to elaborate more on this issue of debt as a tool. Is it really a tool, or it's getting into bondage?
Well, debt is not a tool, really. The truth of the matter is, if you borrow, you remain a slave. I would give a scenario, a true life story. One is me, and one is somebody that I know. Now, this person owed about 1 million. And of course, because he was not able to pay, as I went due, the interest kept increasing. Now, for the first time in my life, I was told to be on the recovery team. I didn't know that thing was not interesting at all. So we would go there and tell this man, please bring back the money. And he would tell you stories and tell you how he's trying to get back this money. But something happened October 2011. Now, he also owed some other people trying to build his house. He went to collect plumbing materials on credit, pipes and wires on credit. And the story we heard was that they tried to make him pay the money by seizing his daughter. He couldn't bear that, and he passed on. So we actually had to go and then for his burial. And when I left that place, I told myself, because I was also in that kind of shoe, that as long as you are owing, whether it's for business, whether it's for personal, whether it's for building, I want to build a house. As long as you're owing, you will remain a debtor. And the truth of the matter is the interest rates will not stop. We work in a bank. If you collect money from day one, your interest starts reading. There is no story about it. You come back and say, my daughter is in the hospital. Please. The system, the computer reads it. So it's not as if it's somebody that sits and says, okay, let's pardon you for 2 days, let's pardon you for 1 week. It keeps reading. And now, we have a situation whereby if you owe any bank anything, there's a portal that they put it on. So you have a record nationally that you're a debtor. Credit Bureau, it's there. So your name is written boldly, what you are owing is written boldly. And until you get out of that debt, for as long as you are there, you can't access money anywhere. When I mean anywhere, I mean any financial institution, whether it's commercial bank, whether it's financial, whether it's microfinance, whatever it is. So once you are into debt, the best thing is just to get out. I did that. 2011, I said it. I was in deficit of 2.5. But I told myself, if you don't get out, you're going to remain there for as long as that money is increasing. I started with an interest of 15%. I ended at 27%. I almost died. But I got out. What I'm saying is, it's not a tool for anything. We have this belief that, okay, I want to have a business, I want to start a business, I need money to start, I want to do this, I need money to start. That's the mentality we are told, but really is a myth. The reality is that as long as you borrow, you are in bondage.
Thank you very much for that, sharing that experience with us. I want to ask a question because, again, for our audience, even though most of what Dave is saying in the videos apply more to American set system, our system too is changing gradually to copy some of those other foreign systems. But what we are trying to do with this Financial Peace Weekend is to bring it, these same ideas, this same concept, to solving our own reality in Nigeria. So that's what we are trying to do in balancing that equation. Now, I have found out that a lot of people go into debt, not even knowing why they get into debt. My question to you is this: why do people even get into debt? Because a lot of people don't know. They just think the thing just falls on you overnight. I want you to share just 1-2 thoughts, 1 minute. Why do people get into debt?
Okay,
Mrs. Akinwale.
let me, because they have another perspective, I have another perspective. Now, the first reason why in my own department that we found out that causes people to go into debt is because most times they don't know who they are. Their self-worth is low. So at the end of the day, it is somebody that pushes them. They try to live a life they can't afford because they want to, somebody else beside them is going for a vacation and they feel they too have to go for that vacation. They have access to a particular money they can use. Maybe they have a friend, they have this, they have that, or maybe they can collect money from the bank or something. Or they have access to some finance that is in their, in their coffee. So the problem usually is self-worth. From my own perspective, you want to be where you are not. You don't want to delay gratification. So at the end of the day, you try and do things that normally at your level you cannot afford. You buy clothes you know you cannot afford. I was telling the teens that last week Saturday we went for a party and they called a color, they said color code is blue. The man said color code blue. But some people still called me and said they wanted us to buy blue lace. And I said, I have blue lace. One of them said, is it not that your same blue lace that you wear every time? I said, so? He said, you can't wear it again. I said, why can't I wear it again? I spent just 2 hours at the party, saw the celebrants for just 5 minutes. Does that change me? But some of them still went to go and buy that blue lace. Do you understand? So sometimes you don't know who you are. You let somebody else determine you. And before you know it, you start living a life you cannot afford.
Well, I think for me, and it's geared towards what she said just now. You see, oftentimes we're too much in a hurry to accomplish what we could accomplish with time if given proper planning and savings towards that particular thing we are talking about. Give an example. Yes, okay, I may probably contradict myself now because I said all debts are bad. Now, some debts are not as bad as others.
Okay.
And by that, I mean, okay, for example, if I happen to have an occasion in an in-law's place, and I go ahead and borrow money for such, in fact, even if they spray me money at the party, I can tell you categorically it cannot take care of 10% of what I'm owing, and eventually I still have to pay. But if I go on and take a debt for a business that has a fantastic cash flow, and all I needed is that, I need this money to actually ensure that I'm able to reach that particular goal or increase that particular cash flow. For example, okay, I have a friend that has a job with a brewery. Now, she has expended her money, and obviously this company don't owe. She has used all she has. And if, peradventure, she failed to continue in that line pending when the other cash flow is going to come on, they may see as not being capable of handling that particular business, and she may lose it. And this is a multi-million naira project. So she taking on a debt to actually take care of that particular business is not entirely a bad idea, because she has done all she could. She has spent her savings on the business. And if she says, okay, Dotun said all debts are bad, so I'm not going to take on debt, and for that reason, okay, the company views her as not being financially capable of taking care of that business, she may eventually lose big rather than what she's trying to save. But generally for people, it's because we're in a hurry to achieve something that ordinarily we can save. And you see, when you take on debt, you eventually spend more than you could have saved. And you see, the day you take on debt, that day is sweet. But from the day you have to start paying, you become a very unhappy individual. So why take it in the first instance?
All right, Ms. Lola, any other thoughts?
Two things I will just mention. One of the things that lead, I think she said it, is the fact that I have the money, I will pay back. That's what got me into, credit card, I've got the money, I will always pay back. It's not necessary I use it. And then that's how I entered my own then. And the thing grew and grew. The other thing is lack of contentment. He said contentment is a great financial principle. You have something and you feel it's not enough for me. I can get something better. I can do something better. I think it's one of the things that push people into debt. If it is, I keep telling my kids, if it is Gary we have, we will take it with joy. The day we have chicken and snail, we take it with joy. Once we are contented with what we have, we won't dip our hands into the money that we don't have.
All right, thank you, panelists. I researched some other reasons beyond the ones they've said, and I think these are some other reasons that we are also not very conversant with. The first one is change in life circumstance for which you were not prepared. For example, a divorce. Somebody dies. You were not prepared for it. You were not expecting, maybe your father is responsible for your school fees and he has been paying all along. Suddenly something happened and the breadwinner is no longer there. So life changes and loss of a job. You were thinking you always have your job. Sudden slash in income. I believe a lot of us experienced it with this suddenly. Many organizations with the recession had to call their staffs. You either take a reduction in pay or they exit you. So these were situations people were not listening, and we have already set our lifestyle on the pedestal, and all these kind of sudden changes, increased cost of living. Government suddenly increases petrol cost.
from 80 something naira to 140 something. You know everything in Nigeria ties with what? Petrol. So definitely the cost of living for almost everything is going to go up. Your landlord is going to increase rent. The market woman is going to. So these are some of the then changing government policies. Of course, this affects a lot of businesses a lot. For example, they devalue the naira. A lot of people had this challenge with their business financing because of that sudden change. Then poor financial. The second one is poor financial management. I think you made mention of some of that. Lack of an emergency fund. Not having an emergency fund. Funny enough, as I was coming here this morning, my car's silencer gave way. It's not an emergency I prepared for. Immediately I called my mechanic. He came, looked at it. I had to out of nowhere, I have to cough out 5,000 naira for him to go and get it fixed. You know, these things happen to us every day. Not keeping and sticking to a budget. Dave talks about this issue of budget. At times, some of us have the budget, but we don't keep to it. When there are, you know, we just push them into the budget. Then poor savings habits. If you don't have a savings, when crisis comes, you find yourself. Then keeping up with the Joneses. I think Mrs. Akinwale mentioned that. That's keeping up with the Joneses. We want to belong. And at times, especially for those of us that work in the civil service, I work with the civil service, this happens a lot. They just come and announce, hey, there's loan facility for you. And you see all your colleagues taking the loan. And you think, there's nothing, it's just domicile your bank, your salary account to the issuing banks, this thing. And you see the bandwagon effect, not even caring about sitting down and looking at the statistics, how the repayment, like that. We just join the bandwagon because it is happening. And of course, if it is available, that is common in America. Credit card is everywhere. I think the challenge we have in Nigeria with issuing credit card is still this issue of identity. And I think if by the time that is solved, it will become something that's everywhere. Some banks are already issuing it. They look at this thing. Okay, medical expenses. A loved one develops cancer, for example. It can wipe out your entire savings. These are situations that happen to all of us that we are not really prepared for. You went for a checkup, you feel everything was fine, and something just happens. I said it could be for you or a loved one. Then gambling and getting rich quick, or doing businesses that are high risk. You know, the common one right now is the Baba Jebu Lotto. Just a word of caution at this point. MMM has rested for this, but you can give Nigerians another 2 or 3, 2 years maximum. Another model will come out, and that's why he said that, look, this issue of debt has been marketed is a scheming. So please, this is why we are trying to do this, because a lot of people fell victim. There are people that even borrowed money. Even the shares issue then, when the shares were just going high, people borrowed money to just take advantage of that, and all of a sudden everything went crashing and they found themselves in a ditch. Of course, the last one which is there is burying your head in the sand. We do this a lot. It's also lack of proper planning. For example, how many of us know December is coming? But how many of us seated here are already planning for December? What about your house rent? You know the bill is coming, but you are believing, you are looking as if it is not going to be there. School fees income. So at times we behave as if these things will not happen, and as if they just fall upon us all of a sudden like that. At the end of the day, this is how we look. We become what? When we have this issue of debt, we become overloaded, and like Dave said, we can't get traction. The cart is already overloaded, and that's what happens with us when it comes to debt. Now, Scripture says this. It says, if you are planning to build a house, you should first of all do what? Sit down and count the cost. I feel oftentimes also when people go into debt, they don't sit down and count the cost. And I think the cost is usually beyond money. I want you to, Mrs. Zola talk about a client that died because he was owing, her daughter was kidnapped so that he could pay, and he could not bear it. Mr. Otunla, I believe you also have been worked with the bank in recovery things. What are the issues that people have? What are the other costs of going into debt beyond just the money you owe? I just want us to clearly educate.
Okay.
Well, just a minute.
Okay.
In a minute,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Well, in the process of actually paying back debt, you see, people go through a lot of emotional trauma. I've seen old men, big men, so to speak, burst into tears, basically because they feel embarrassed by the action of bankers, who are trying to recover that fund. And you see, it's not easy. Some people with blood pressure, basically because of that shock, it gets into their head and they lose their life. I've seen someone that actually happened to. What happened? He's owing the bank wanted its money back. Instead of going to court, we went through the process of a gentleman agreement that, okay, find a buyer for your property. We will give you a concession. At the end of the day, we'll take this much. This balance goes to your bank account. But for the fact that he lost that property, the man did not stay 6 months. He died. And there are many of such stories that is in the system like that. So it goes beyond just paying the money. It goes as far as your reputation damage. It goes as far as your health damage sometimes. It goes as far as losing what you have sweat for years to the bankers. So there's more to it than just taking the money and paying it back.
Mrs. Akinwale, any different thoughts?
Well, yeah, I said it all. I think majorly shame, and the fact that you cannot have integrity again. We have, bankers now, they see you and they say, if you it won't pay. And, that kind of thing does not speak well about you. So I think basically shame and lack of integrity. You can't get to do things you normally, even goes beyond money. You say something, they will say, if he die, he will not do it. He can't keep his promise, and before you know it, people can bank on you. You are no longer dependable.
All right. Thank you. Now, before I come to Mr. Otunla, because you made mention of this, then let me go to Mrs. Oladele Ojo. Good debt, bad debt. Because Mr. Otunla was saying, because these are part of the myths that we have to tackle. And our system is not so much like that. But these are some of the things. Of course, we all know about the bad debts. You take a loan to buy a car, the car starts depreciating the moment it leaves the lot. These ones are listen. But the ones we call the good debts, for example, mortgage, education, business ownership, real estate, then investing. People say, okay, you borrow money to buy a house or to build a house, and you think that is a good debt. These are the gray areas that I want you, Mrs. Oladele, to quickly shed light on in 2 minutes, please.
Good debt, bad debt. How do I start? Well, sometimes you may need to take some money. Like I was talking about the debt equity ratio, there's a limit to it. I would also use myself as an example. I had this belief that if you need to build, you may take people's money and build. But after sitting down and looking at the cost, I discovered that in some cases it's not advisable. I want to build a house that will cost 5 million, for example, and then I take a loan of 2 million, and I'm going to pay back in 2 years. Please, I just want somebody to try and imagine what I'm talking about. Now, I take that 2 million and I use it. I cannot take another one until after 2 years when I finished spending the 2 years, when I finished paying back, can I actually get that dream of building the house? So what I thought about after looking at that ratio was to now say, okay, if you actually need that 2 million to build a house that would give you money, because your house is not an asset, it's a liability. So if it's for your house, you may turn it to rent, that okay, at the end of the day, I'm paying my rent back to the bank. But it's advisable that if you have to do that, what I did was I got the house to a level that if I had to take that money, it would just complete it. I will start living inside and paying my rent back to the bank. Unlike taking 2 million, build and stop not even halfway now, because we're looking at 5 million. You stop somewhere mid, and then you have to wait for another 2 years to finish paying that before you do it. So there are some times that you may have to take, but you must sit down and count the cost. It's very, very important. You sit down and count the cost. And if as much as possible, because that's what I'm living on now, if as much as possible you can do away with debt or bring it to the lowest, is better. I told myself, get out and get out finally.
All right. Just to buttress what Mr. Ostunla said earlier on, I saw these statistics when it comes to student loans. Because, again, we say education is borrowing to go to school is an investment. But the reality, especially with the American system, is that by the time you now graduate, you find out 5-10 years down the line, you are still carrying that loan. But it's not always the case in terms of for us as Africans. What we find out in Africa is that your parents literally carry the burden of your going to school, even for some, even to master's level. I think our parents deserve a round of applause. And we just give them a round of applause, at least for saving us that burden of debt. Now, you made mention of a statistic that, the Chinese, and this actually buttresses it. You'll find out that, sorry, it's not clear, but it's the whites, according to these statistics, in terms of student loan debt by race, that's the statistics. The whites have about 64.6%. The average debt is about $24,742, followed by then the blacks. The blacks have the highest, and that's why I said the reason we have probably have the highest is that our parents more or less carry the burden of our debt, and we borrow a lot, even in Africa. That also shows that. For the blacks, it's 79%, and that comes to about $28,692. For Hispanic, it's $22,886, and while for the Asians, it's 21. You were saying the Asians, the Chinese, they have been taught how to save even from school, unlike the Americans that you start learning to borrow when you go to school. You already made mention of this, so I wouldn't want to stay too much on this. Now, the numbers. I want a quick reaction, Mrs. This is just to buttress what you have already said before in terms of statistics. But a lot of us don't see the big picture. Now, if you look at the chart up, it's the interest loan you pay back for 1 year on 1 million. At 6%, at 18%, and at 24%. And a lot of us, we don't even understand this percentage issue. Mr. Otula said the business or the work he does is that they take from surplus. Now, you carry your money to bank and they give you what, 3% or maybe less per annum. But you want to borrow back the same money. They give you at what? Minimum 18% or 24% and above. And for all of us, so for some of us, we think it's okay. I think we really need to sit down and look at the numbers. This rate is excluding other bank and hidden charges. I want you, either of you, to quickly react on this, especially the hidden charges, because I noticed that most times the prints where the conditions that most banks put all those clauses are so tiny that you feel bored reading them. Over to you, Mr. Tola, Mrs. Olalejo, since you work in that system. Don't worry, we are trying also to expose some of the, hidden things when it comes to this issue of debt and all that.
Okay, let me quickly say this. You see, if you're dealing with a commercial bank, really there is no hidden charges when it comes to our business. And the reason why I'm bold to say that is this, this is a highly regulated industry. There's a blueprint of what we're to charge in terms of management fee, in terms of, prior to now we charge COT, now it's account maintenance fee. There's limit to what you can charge. For every kind of business we do, or for every kind of debt customers goes into with us, there's limit to what we can charge. And really there is no difference between a bank and the other. For many banks, that tries to hide on customers' ignorance and try to beat them to heat, you understand? The day customers discover, or CBN examiners check through the books and they find out that, you have overcharged these people, they ask you to repay as a bank. And there is always a sanction for banks that way. Now, they also spelled it clearly to us what we can charge. Prior to now, we charge you processing fee, management fee, all sort of fees, Right now, what we are allowed to do is management fee in the case of some debts, for some renewal fees, stuff like that. So really, there is nothing hidden in what we charge. But the crazy thing about it is you see, when we take your fund as deposit, maybe on savings account, we pay you maybe highest 6%, depending on the kind of account you maintain. If you are doing fixed deposit, maybe we give you right now that cost of fund is actually coming down. We probably give you maybe 10, 9, as the case may be, depending on your negotiating power. But right now, still lending is still on the high side. The least you can get out there is 28%, and you see it's a big wide gap. So when I talk to my customer, because I try to be a banker with a difference, I narrow it down to the customer in terms of naira and kobo. And say, look at this much you want to borrow, look at this much you are going to pay, check it against the business you are doing. Is it worth your while? If it is worth your while, take it on. If it's not worth your while, please don't go into it.
Now, this is very interesting, and Mrs. Akinwale, I'm going to start with you, especially now, when people borrow, and this is what we often enter into. You have a friend, you have a family that wants to borrow money, and he comes to you and says, be my guarantor. And you sign as a friend, because this happened to a friend and a colleague. He stood as guarantor for another colleague. Unfortunately, the colleague had died while the loan was still on, but because he's the guarantor, the money is taken from source. That is, as his salary is coming in, because they both work in the same establishment, and he is the guarantor, the system removes automatically. And this is what the Bible says. It is poor judgment to countersign another's note, to become responsible for his debt. From the legal perspective, what do you have to say to this? Just 2 minutes, please.
Don't guarantee.
Don't
do guarantor. That's just the safest thing to say. Now, it might seem unfair, because you might tell me it is because you are not in my shoes, that is why. But you know me, I will pay back. You know that, this money is coming in, this, that. But if something happens and at the end of the day you cannot pay back, the way they will handle the guarantor is worse than the way they will handle the person that is owing. So if you are going to countersign for someone, make sure you have that money. It's not bad to do it. it is very, very risky. But make sure that what of if anything happens, like what you have just said, you know, we say something as force majeure, the act of God. Something both of you don't have control over. What of if the person dies and at the end of the day he can't pay? Who will pay? So before you countersign, we advise that, it's as if you are donating your kidney for someone. They are telling you, okay, your kidney, or that one kidney can take you till you're 100 years old. You will be fine. But you might die next year. That other kidney might pack up. You don't know. So before you sign, you must be able to know that what if this person does not pay, you are sure to pay without you getting pained. You cannot countersign what you cannot afford. If somebody is borrowing 50,000 naira now, make sure you have that 50,000. You understand? You are liquid of that 50,000. That 50,000, you are ready to dash it out. So if that person does not pay, then you can pay conveniently.
All right, let me quickly go to the audience. Do we have questions from the audience on the things we've shared so far before we go into the next part of the video? Any audience? Any question from the panelists? All right, can we move to the video? Media. Oh, okay, just a minute.
Well, the first thing was I was reading through Proverbs. If you read
Just a minute. Okay, there's somebody there, please.
Hello? Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity you've given us today. But I want to call our attention to a few things. Number one, how do we balance the opportunity we can get from taking risk with the debt thing? And another thing is time value of money. 1,000 naira 5 years ago is not the same thing as 1,000 naira this year. If I'd taken 1,000 naira in 2010 to do something, even though interest rate has increased, and this year, if I have that same 10,000 naira or 1,000 either, it's not going to be the same thing. I want us to balance, to look at that area. Even though debt could be bad, but how do we leverage on the opportunity that we can, get from, taking it? Or is it absolutely bad? Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Lola, I want your quick reaction to that so that we can go to the video.
Okay, for a balance, like I said, you have to sit down and count the cost. It's very important. If you want to take a loan today and you're sure what you're going to use it for can quickly generate and get you out of that, why not? Papa Smith in the morning talked about an opportunity he had, a house, and they were deducting, and the bureaus paid that money. If you have that opportunity where they can take, and you're still in that organization, why not take the opportunity of maybe a housing scheme or something? So we are not saying that debt is 100% bad, but we are saying as much as possible, try and not be in debt, because it's a bondage. It has a way of pulling one down. So if you have to, then you need to sit down and really calculate and count it. As much as possible, I would say debt is a no-go area. But at the same time, I will also say if you have to, like I told you, I've taken debt before. I've used it for projects that are yielding rental income. So if you have to, then make sure that it's calculated risk. It's not time. Then you talked about time value of money. The 1,000 of 5 years ago will be like 500 of today or 200 naira today. So if that 1,000 then you are sure it will get you as much as can get you then, and not extend for another 5 years, that it would have gone down in value, then it's okay. I explained a credit card, let me put it that way, that I took in 2011, and I didn't finish because of some things which I will still talk about. I never got to finish it until, in short, I almost, that day I said, I will kill this thing today. I will kill you today. And I spent 3 hours in the car killing that debt that day. But even aside that, I've taken other ones to complete projects that yielded income immediately. So there's a balance to it. It's not advisable to go into debt. Okay, I want to bury, I want to do a wedding, I want to do a party, I want to do this, and then it keeps revolving. Even let me just have a credit card. Should I want to just buy something? Those are debts that we shouldn't go into. But I want to get a building that will generate income. I want to do a business that will give me something that will make me get out of it. That's where we are going to get out of it, not just continue and revolving and revolving. If you take a loan and you're able to quickly repay it,
right,
it moves you forward. I think it's good.
Okay, thank you. Please, because of time's sake, I'm seeing two hands. Okay. All right, let me take yours quickly.
Thank you. Please, my question is directly to Madam, my first Madam, concerning the issue of guarantor. I want to hear your approach for somebody to come to you and say, please, your family member that want to get a loan, and said, my brother, please come and help me to be a guarantor. And you know that this person maybe is your elder brother or your younger brother, and you know that this person have to use the money to do a business or to do something that is very, very important. On what way you can take yourself out of that situation? Please, I want a practical.
I've told you, there's no going back and forth on it. The money you want to guarantee, do you have it to spare? If you do, keep it by your side and go ahead and co-sign the loan. If you don't, I am sorry, even if it is my father, I can't do it. Because it means that if that person does not pay, I will be put through some trauma that I was not the one that spent the money. If you're sure that the business is going to grow well, fine, no problem. See, sometimes that is part of the problem. That is part of the things that put us into debt. Sentiment. We had sentiment, family sentiment, friend sentiment. My friend was still telling me, I think 2 weeks ago, that she wanted to take a loan in her former place of office and place of work. And she went to meet somebody that is like an elderly friend to her. She was so sure the woman was going to guarantee the loan. And the woman said, no, I'm not doing it. Because she knows the implication. So whether it's family member, whether it's your child, whether it's your husband, whether it's your wife, do you have the money to pay back just in case that person is not going to pay back? Yes, I do. Fine, co-sign. I don't co-sign.
All right, thank you. Yes, to the last question from the audience. All right.
We are talking about financial freedom.
Yes, sir.
My brother was talking about taking calculated risks. You don't take calculated risks with banks from money from banks. Because if you take a calculated risk from a bank, you are going to run into problems. The reason is this, and I think the regulations in Nigeria are not helping us. Because what this man is talking about is different from the situation we have in this country. When you take a loan of 10 naira from somebody, too many charges go with that loan. They have all sorts of charges, COT.
I said they are now transparent with the charges.
Wait, let me finish. So you don't calculate your risks with that. You can only take calculated risk when you are borrowing from a one-on-one person. You know that I want to take 100 naira from you, I'm giving you back 100 naira. Go and check the computers of most banks. They have been designed to wreck people who are doing businesses. They have been designed to make sure that you are persistently and constantly in debt. They've been designed to ensure that you don't get out of the debt you have. You have cases where they even charge things they call default charges, where if you do not pay something today, you will pay ×2 tomorrow. It does not recognize public holidays. And neither does it recognize weekends. The charges continue every day. We need regulations in this country to get us out of this mess. I have been working for and against banks since 1991, and I know what I'm talking about. So my brother, don't take calculated risks with money from banks. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Please, let's go to the video to the
Proverbs over and over and over again. You get a master's degree in finance. You get a master's degree in finance. It's amazing. There's 31 Proverbs, so you can read one a day. Just get you a little spiritual one a day. And so I'm doing my little spiritual one a day one morning, and I've read through this a bazillion times, and I've heard this. People call in on my radio show. They're getting out of debt, and they say, I'm getting out of debt. They have this thing in their voice that tells me that they're going to make it. And then the others they call in, they're like, well, dude, sort of kind of like maybe this strategy, and maybe it'll work sort of maybe. So what sort of do you do? I'm like, well, I can't help you. Call me back. I didn't know what it was, but I said, like, call me back when you're mad or something, you know? You got to get that thing going, you know? And I couldn't put my finger on it, and I was reading through Scripture one morning, and I hit Proverbs 6:1-7. And it says, if you've signed surety, my son, which is Old English Bible talk for got yourself in debt. If you've gotten yourself in debt, do this. Now, I teach people how to get out of debt, and I wanted to get out of debt, and so I saw a do this, and my little ears went, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because I had a spiritual experience a few years ago. I discovered God is smarter than me. And when he says, you're here and you don't want to be here, so do this, I'm listening for what comes after that. That's a big deal. If you're in debt, biblically, do this. Give no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids, and deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, a bird from the hand of the fowler. And I promise you, it's not very reverent, but I promise you I went, great, gazelles. What am I going to do with gazelles? Great little animal metaphor, talk about it in Sunday school. But, I mean, how are you going to talk to people about gazelles and death? This doesn't. That night, God answered my prayer. I was scanning the channels, and I hit the Discovery Channel. And there on the Discovery Channel, there was the gazelles. They were out there gazelling around. And what were they doing? Well, I said, well, you know, here it is. There's the gazelles. And you know the gazelles were not there by themselves, right? You know somebody else was around, right? Looking for lunch in all the right places. And gazelles, they have a cheetah detector right behind their ear. When they see a cheetah, they go like, uh-oh, cheetah! Run! Now, the Discovery Channel said that the cheetah is the fastest animal on dry land. We had to slow this down so I'd have time to talk. He goes from 0 to 47 miles an hour in 4 leaps. Now, it's starting to come clear to me. Here's how you get out of debt. You deliver yourself like the gazelle from the hand of the hunter. The primary predator of the gazelle is the cheetah. Here's how you get out of debt. You run! You gotta bust it! You gotta look, he picked out the college student, didn't he? Hey, you want a free hat? Hey, I'll give you a t-shirt. Just sign up for this credit card. You want a pizza? Hey, come here, kid. You need to build up your FICO score. Come here, kid. That's how you get out of debt. You gotta run, baby. You gotta put it in gear. You gotta go, 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 go. Kick it, baby, kick it. You know how long we had to look for a clip where he gets away? The truth is that the cheetah doesn't catch the gazelle but 1 in 19 times, and yet he can outrun him. Isn't that weird? What a great metaphor. Cheetah's after your family. Run! This is how you get out of debt. You pop it. Around our place, we find out that people get out of debt when they get gazelle intensity. When they quit caring what their broke friends think and their family who needs counseling thinks. They quit worrying about everybody else's opinion about what they drive. And they amputate the $40,000 Tahoe. And they're driving a hoopty. A piece of junk. They're going to drive like no one else so that later they get to drive like no one else because they want to change their family tree. They want to send their kids to college. They want to change how their grandkids live and their great-grandkids live. A godly man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. They want to change and they get fired up. When you get fired up, you'll get out of debt. You can wander into debt, honey, but you can't wander out. You got to bust it. The gravitational pull is too strong. It holds you in the orbit. You have to kick the energy to break the orbit. It's the only chance you make it. And if you do it long enough, eventually you get to chase the cheetah. Thank you, Photoshop. Second thing we're going to teach you to do is you need to do the debt snowball. The debt snowball is where you list all of your debts, smallest to largest. You pay minimum payments on everything but the little one, and you attack the little one regardless of the interest rate. Well, my medical bills don't have any interest on them. Shut up and pay off the smallest one. Why shouldn't we pay off the highest interest rate first? Wouldn't that be mathematically correct? Darling, if we were doing math, we wouldn't have credit card debt. This is about behavior modification. The problem with my money is the guy in my mirror. I got to change my behaviors. We had one mom going through our courses that put great big debt snowball. The form's on the back of your handout, by the way. The great big debt snowball, blew it up, put it on her refrigerator door. She'd draw a big red line through it every time she knocked one out. And the kids said she'd be walking through the kitchen looking at that thing going, "You're going down." The kids are like, "Mom's losing it." But you got to have a game plan. When you knock off that smallest one, you feel good. It's like going on a diet and losing weight. When you knock that next one off, you feel good. Every time you pay off one, you got more money to attack the next one down. The snowball rolls over. It gets bigger. By the time you get to the bottom, you are wired. Because it's, it's like, it's amazing. I ran 2 marathons one day the other day. My first and my last all in one day. But it's amazing. I run halves now. A whole marathon's just too tough for an old guy. But I run these halves, and it's amazing to me. I can run for 2 hours or hour and a half. I can run 13 miles, and I'm running along for all this time, and I can still have a little bit left to sprint at the end. Isn't that weird? It's because you can see the end. When you can see the end, and the light at the end of the tunnel is not an oncoming train, you can go. And you go, "That's it. That's the last one." You get this thing going, and people are like, "Just stay away from them. They're getting out of debt. They are weird people." And you become weird people because, by the way, normal is broke. You don't want to be normal. The Bible says be a peculiar people. I made it an art form. So there's 5 things you need to do with doing the debt snowball and with your gazelle intensity. 5 steps out of debt. Let's look at them. The first one is you need to save money. You need to save money. We teach people the very first thing they do with money, what we call baby step 1, is save $1,000. As fast as you can, get a little bit of a savings account. Because if you just get in there and you start cutting up your credit cards and you have no money and your tire is flat, then you're like, you're in here going, "Okay, I'm getting out of debt. That's it. I'm cutting these things up. I'm done, baby. That's it. I'm done." And then you go out there and your tire's flat. You'll be back in here going, "Where's the crazy glue?" Because you've been leaning on these things. They're a rubber crutch, but you've been leaning on them. So you put a little bit of money aside as your first thing. Save some money. That's the first step. The next step is you got to quit borrowing more money. You can't get out of a hole while you dig out the bottom. So you got to say, "That's it. No matter what happens, no matter what the situation, no matter how desperate or how intriguing or what the big opportunity is, I am not borrowing money anymore." And you get these things out and you have a plasectomy party. And if you've got kids, have your kids help you cut them. Because your kids will remember that. When you're at the store, you say, "You remember? We cut up the cards, remember? I want that. I don't have any money. I cut up the cards. Remember, you helped me cut them up." But the kids will remember. You'll run into your kid 30 years later. They're 36 years old, and they'll remember that day they were 6 years old and the family tree was changed. They'll feel it in their emotions. Things happen when families take a stand. Things start to shift. It's a behavior modification issue. It's a matter of character. It's a matter of where you're going to live. I'm not borrowing money anymore. Next time I get ready to buy a car, I'm going to save a car payment for 10 months and write a check and buy cash. See, a car payment's $478. You put that in a cookie jar for 10 months, you got $5,000. Will that buy a little car? Say yes. Do I want to drive that car forever? Say no. I don't want to drive a $5,000 car forever. But I could drive it for 10 more months while I saved up another $5,000, then I'd have a $10,000 car, right? Because the good news about that $5,000 car is it isn't going down much in value. It's pretty well done. I'm not borrowing money anymore. And then God will go, this is a test. When your transmission goes out, right? Now what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And then he has the opportunity to show up. I had a friend of mine decided he wasn't borrowing money anymore. 3 weeks later, his car engine blew up. He had no money. He had to have the car to get to work. He called me. He said, what do you do? I said, I don't know what you do, but I'll tell you what you got to do. This is a decision. Right now, you're deciding how you're going to live the rest of your life. Right now. This is a hinge pin moment. A guy at his church, he was telling him what was going on. The guy at his church goes, man, I got an old pickup back here. It's not anything fancy, but you can drive it for a few weeks. He drove that old pickup for 3 months, saved up, paid cash for a little car. The guy has a pile of money now. That was just a few years ago. But he made a decision in that moment and allowed one of God's people to show up. God showing up through his people, go figure, to help him out and walk him through this thing. Quit borrowing more money. The third one is prayer really works. Now, I'm not a theologian. I'm just kind of a regular guy that loves Jesus. But I'll tell you this. The way I got it figured out is this. You're deeply in debt, and your heavenly Father is crazy about you. God in heaven thinks you're awesome. You're deeply in debt, and oh, good news, he owns everything. He's really rich. Your dad is rich, and you're in debt. Phone home, E.T. Check in. Call home. Now, I'm not saying God's going to give stupid people money because they will lose it. But if you're on a plan, I can tell you this. Over the years of counseling people, I've watched people year after year after year who are getting out of debt and are gazelle intense. I've watched their incomes go up as they're doing that. Blessings occur. It's kind of mystical and weird. Not really. It's kind of practical. You now became trustworthy. Worthy of trust. And the Father looks and says, that one's growing a brain. We may be able to use that one. Well, I don't want to phone home. He's mad at me. He's not mad at you. Well, you don't know what I've done, Dave. Listen, how many of you have had enough kids that you had a stupid one? God has some stupid kids. And don't you love the stupid one anyway? I mean, I don't care if I get an A or a C. I mean, I care, but I mean, I love the C as much as I love the A, don't I? Because I'm a loving father, and I'm an imperfect father. He loves you anyway. If you phone home with the right attitude and you hadn't called home in a while, he's not mad at you. As a matter of fact, he'll throw a party, give you a new suit of clothes, put a gold ring on your finger, and serve filet mignon. It's in there. Look it up. It'll change your life. Prayer really works. Ask for some help. Number 4, sell something. Sell so much stuff the kids think they're next. Name the dog eBay. Put the cat on Craigslist. You got to sell stuff. If it's not bolted down, dump it. Not that Craigslist. Has he got his own list? Oh my gosh. Most of you don't need to sell your house. Most of you, that's not it. But some of you need to sell your car. Some of you are out of control. I have people call me up. You know, Dave, I make $32,000 a year. How do I fund my kids' college? Well, how much do you owe on your car? I was calling about college. Yeah, I know, but how much do you owe on your car? $28,000. You make $32,000, you're driving a $28,000 car. Dude, that's stupid. See, that's biblical counsel right there. Amputate the Tahoe. You can't get traction with a $600 car payment, and nobody's impressed, really. They're not. They act like they are, and about 20 minutes after the toxic smell wears off the new car smell, they're not impressed anymore. That's it. Number 5, take a part-time job or an extra job or some overtime or something like that. My grandmother used to say there's a great place to go when you're broke. To work! Work is a surefire money-making scheme. If you read Scripture, our God is a God of work. The diligent prosper. Don't work, don't eat. It's all in there. I'm just praying and waiting on God. No, that's Christian for lazy. There's a time you wait on God. I'm just kidding around. But a lot of times when my brothers and sisters in Christ say that, I just give them a little kick. Move! Get moving. You know, because you're just rationalizing in the name of Christ being lazy. Get off your tail end and go kill something. You got to get up, leave the cave, kill something, and drag it home. That's how it works, man. We're a people of action. We're not a people of passivity. We're a people that's proactive and causes things to happen. Get out there and knock something down, man. Make a mess somewhere. You know, go make some money. It'll solve a lot of. There's only two sides of the equation: the income and the outgo. Got to get the outgo down and the income up. Creates margin in the middle for giving and saving. This is the formula. So you really do have to make some more money. Do you want to work crazy for the rest of your life? No. You work like no one else, so later you can work like no one else. You know when I work? Whenever I want. You know why? Because I used to work all the time. Now I do what I want to do when I want to do it. I'm spoiled rotten. But there's a way you get there. You spoil yourself rotten by pouring on the coals, making a difference for a period of time. Intensity for a short period of time blows things up. Do these 5 steps. They will absolutely get you out of debt every time. Think about it with me. If you had no payments, if you were...
Hello, welcome back. There are some things he quickly mentioned there which are on how to get out of debt. And these are the 5 things which he mentioned. You need to save money. This whole weekend workshop is to get us to having a behavioral change. And I think because what he's trying to do is for us to get the biblical sense as to how to handle money. There is a verse of scripture or a principle in scriptures that I believe we break oftentimes, is this issue of he that has more will be given unto him, and to him that has not, even the little he has will be taken out of such one's hand. I think that is the issue that happens a lot with us when it comes to the issue of debt. And that's why I was saying that when you observe that God begins to, that from his own experience, when people begin to get out of debt and they begin to save money, their income begins to go up. The second thing he mentioned is quit borrowing. The moment you are in a hole, stop digging. Some of us do this at times. We borrow from A to pay B. When that one, we borrow from C to pay B back. You know, it's like we do this round tripping and we are never out of debt. The whole idea of this 2 days workshop is to get us to have this behavioral change. If you are already in the mess of borrowing, please don't borrow anymore. Begin to develop a plan on how to get out of the one you borrowed. The other one is prayer. Papa Smith said earlier on, asked that question, how many of us are in debt? And I see a few hands go up. And the truth is, prayer really works. I know we'll come to that. Prayer really works. You can trust God when you have a genuine heart that you want to get out of debt, and God will come to your help. Sell something. A lot of us have things we can sell. We have things in the house that we are not using. At times we think they don't value much, but there are people that want them. You have some things, even old coins, old Naira notes. Do you know those things? Some people place value on such assets that we don't count. So sell something, then take a part-time job to augment whatever your income is, so that you can get out of debt. There is a wise concept in that if you begin to pay an extra payment on your loan or debt, you can be out of that debt in less than half of the time by just paying one more extra payment every month. So these are the thoughts that we have for you this time. I want to go back to my panelists for their closing thoughts. Just before I take that, just also to add to the question my brother asked earlier on about this, why some of us go into borrowing. You want to expand your business, you want to take advantage. I think part of also the challenge we have is this cultural mentality that, especially for business owners, you don't want to let go. There are people that do equity funding, counterpart funding. Instead of you going to borrow, they only have a stake in your business and they can share profit with you. But these
idea of you want to eat all the profit alone, you want to carry all the risk alone, I think it's a bad model of business for Africans. We need to begin to think of how we can bring partners into our businesses, let them have a stake, and the truth is that will not be the only idea you have. God will surely bless you with more ideas that you can, from the money you make from that one, you can now have money to run your other ideas without going into debt. My panelists, thank you for your time. Please let me take your closing thoughts in 1 minute. Let me start with Mrs. Akinwale. Your closing thoughts. Our time is up.
Thank you, sir. Well, don't let anybody push you into what you cannot afford. That's what I tell people every time. Develop your self-worth. Know that you are who you are. Nobody should tell you what you are not. And please, it's very important to save. Save for everything. You know, they encourage us to do emergency saving. And your best friend comes down and says, mom is turning 80, and let's just do white gele. That's not an emergency, please. Determine emergency. Emergency is not going to cost stone or doing things that, you can let go of. Emergency are things that come up, opportunities, beautiful things. Then there's a way debt can come in form of a beautiful way. You feel, I can pay in bits. You can go into a shop, you can save up for a shoe that is just 4,000 naira. But because you are going to pay in 4 months, the woman says you should bring 5,005. You have just lost 1,500. Now, for businesses, people tell me Dangote is owing bank and is a billionaire. Please don't borrow for your business. Start small. Don't despise small beginnings. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Lola.
Okay, the idea of this whole program is actually a paradigm shift. A lot of us, personally and in business, think that I need money from other people to start the business. Most of the questions will be, I want to start a business, and it's believed that we need debt. People believe that they need debt for everything, but the truth of the matter is you don't need it. You don't need to go into debt. You can save up for that business. Like Barrister Olasope said, we say calculated risk. Even if you know all the charges, the rate the bank will charge you can be changed at any time. So why not save up for that business that you want to save up? I would say, like Dave said, run from debt. Stay out of it, get out of it. If you are there, get out of it. And once you get out, please stay out of it. Thank you.
Mr. Otunla, thank you.
I will rather advise this way. You see, we should learn to cut our clothes according to the material we have. So if what you have is that it can only sew a boxers, sew a boxers. Don't try to sew a suit out of a small material that you have. And you see, business is interesting. It's like grooming a child. You see, you don't use any big money to start a business. The business should grow itself. Don't be in a hurry to grow the business and force unnecessary artificial growth on the business, because with the process of time you learn some nitty-gritty about that business, and that business become well off, and that business takes care of you eventually. And lastly, you see, if you are in debt already, like the man said, you see, I always advise people that, okay, go to your creditor, sit down with that creditor, discuss with him or her, and find a midway how you can actually solve this that shows the person, okay, yes, I'm going to pay back your money. At the same time, it gives you a leeway with which you can actually pay back this money. God will help us. Thank you.
All right, please a round of applause for my panelists as they go down to join us in the audience. Lastly, one of the things Dave said is that what prayer really works. I don't know if you are in debt right now. I just feel led that we can just bow down our heads and just talk to God for help, ask God for help. Some of the debts some of us are carrying are not our own debts. Some are transferred debts. Your father was owing, is no more, and now you have to carry that burden of that debt. And if you are in a debt that you're actually you've lured yourself into it, the Bible says we should get out of it quickly, but we can all ask God for help. And I want us just in 1 minute ask God for help to pay, whether God is going to move your creditor to cancel the debt, which the Bible talks about, cancellations of debt after 7 years, or God is going to give you means to pay it. I want us to just ask God for that help. In Jesus' name. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Debt, run. The Bible makes us to understand that we should flee the appearance of evil. In other words, they've told you that debt is an evil. So, best say sorrow, run. All right, I'm sure that we have gotten something great this afternoon. Okay, I'm going to allow just one brief comment, and then we're going to take another break, go for lunch, and then we'll get ready to come to the next section. So I'll allow Ms. Adiola to come and say one or two things, and then we'll move to the next session. All right, or where she wants to stand there, or you want to stand or you want to come, which one do you prefer?
Thank you, Pastor Smith. I just want to encourage everyone to really appreciate this program. I myself use this Financial Peace program. I'm an American, of course, but it works. It actually works. I did it, my husband and I, and that's why I'm here today. I'm free to move around and do what I want to do and live like no one else is living. I have my colleagues at home. They wonder, how did you do it? It takes a lot of discipline. You have to be disciplined. You have to, like he said, you have to nothing should be more important than getting out of debt. Because that's money. When you take these loans, you're giving away your assets. You're giving away the money. I always say you're giving away the money that's meant for your old age. When you take a loan of, let's say, even $50,000, how much you will pay back? Like Barrister already said, all the percentages, they take that up front. What they do, they take advantage of you. They take advantage of the situation because this credit card, they start in the university in America. That's what they do. They'll go and, like they so rightly said, they'll say, oh, just sign up. We'll give you a free T-shirt, a free hat. And those kids are like, yes, I'll have $1,000. What can I do with this money? And they will do it. And before you know it, in the debt. And they say, oh, just pay $25 a month. But out of that $25, maybe $5 go towards your actual principal. So it can take you 5 years if you're not careful. Because if you're late, the penalty may be $30 plus the other additional fees. So it's a trap. It's enslavement. But you have to be determined. Yes, you say it's different here in Nigeria. It is, but debt is debt. And as far as co-signing, I don't advise anybody to co-sign for anyone unless you can afford to lose that money, unless you can afford to give that money away, not even your own children. I have grown children. They know that because I've taught them. They know they cannot come and say, Mom, co-sign for a car. They know they cannot take a loan for a car. I don't believe in it. We did it once, and that was the biggest mistake of our lives. We bought a car on credit. It took us 5 years to pay for a car. And in that 5 years, we paid cash for 11 cars. Wasted money. Wasted money. Save. Save. When you know you can afford it, you have the cash in your hand, and it's not meant for anything else. You can do it. It's just going to take discipline. It's going to take not buying that gaily and buying what y'all call Ashore-B, going to different events. We didn't do it. And people would just look at us. You didn't buy the fabric. No, we didn't, but am I okay? That was our attitude. I'm there. The thing is that my presence, is it about the clothes or the fact that I'm present at your event? So you're going to have to take some measures. You're going to have to stop some name brand. I did it. My husband and I, we did it. We stopped name brand. And we bought what you all call Tukumbo, or fairly used. I did it. I went in the shop, took it home, washed it, pressed it, ironed it, just like new. Everybody thought my children were the best dressed children in school. So there's ways of doing it. To make a long story short, I went for a training 3 weeks ago in America with Amazon. And believe it or not, I was shocked because I've lived by these principles all my life. So I started this in my 20s. And the first thing they said, to do this business, all you need, let's check your credit score. And that credit score will determine how much money they can lend you. And I've been out of the system for 14 years. I've been in Nigeria for 14 years. And they checked my credit score, and I had a 758. That's very high. I'm like, I'm not even in the system. Then I remember, oh yeah, it's entrapment. They told me they would give me $100,000. I said, to do what? Put me a slave again? Keep it. Keep it. So you have to be determined, because temptation will come, especially with credit cards. They're coming to Nigeria. Don't say, oh, they're not here. They're here. But if you're not careful, you're being trapped. This is the money you're supposed to use to be investing for your old age. Even the money in the bank is not safe, because what they will give you is so small. And they've shared this with you earlier. The money they will give you on your saving is so small. But go and try to borrow that money. They will charge you 24, 27, 28, even 30%. And in the bank, they give you 7%. So for me, even to keep the money in the bank, I'd rather invest. Make a very well calculated risk and invest your own money. You keep some there, but invest your money. To keep money in the bank here is depreciating. It doesn't have value. Like you so rightly said, something, $1,000, I'm sorry, I'm still in American mode, 1,000 naira 5 years ago, what is it worth today? So please take all this information and put it to great use. Your life will be changed forever. Thank you.
So in other words, she's telling you it works. At least she's an American in Nigeria telling you that it works. So let's take note. All right, we're going to go quickly for our lunch break. But before we do that, how many of you came with your children? You came with your children, or you came with your teenagers? You came with your children. Okay, your children are being taken care of. They'll be given lunch for children and teenagers. For the adults, we have lunch at a kind of rebate rate for sale for you. So if you walk outside, there's a place thereby you can get lunch at a rebate rate. Just at the side, there's some snacks there. So we're going to do that in the next 20 minutes, get lunch, relax ourselves, and then we'll come back and we'll go into the last session, which we're talking about the myths of money. So please, let's just go. You can stroll around, stretch your legs, and you can also come and look at the materials we have here. You cannot take them away, but at least you can look at them and take note of them. If you want to get some of them, we can help you get some of them, or give you links and directions how to get them, that they will bless you. So let's go for lunch in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then we'll be back here by 2:35. So that we can bring ourselves back on track. We're short a bit over our time, so we need to bring ourselves back on time. God bless you. Okay, so we'll be back by 2:40, 2:45, so that we can kick off the next session. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20. We have 25 minutes thereabouts to have lunch. So you can stretch your legs. You can move around.
Yaga, 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 yo.